Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 2 of EDU6550. That's right, week 1 is down. We are in week 2 now. And like I told you before, this class will go by very, very quickly. Those of you who were with me last fall for EDU6200, you know that class took a little bit of time to go through. And this one here flies by. We're in week 2 already. And everybody did their week 1 discussion post. Everybody posted their 2 replies, and everybody got their score for that. I've already taken care of grading those. Let's talk about week 2. We're going to talk about a few things in tonight's video. Number 1, we're going to discuss week 2's activities. Number 2, we're going to talk about upcoming activities and things you have to be thinking about and working on. And number 3, I'm going to talk about content from the chapters. So I'll do that piece last. First of all, in week 2, which starts today, you are reading chapters 3 and 4 of the Data-Wise book. Hopefully you've already dove into this book and you're finding it to be a very, very useful tool for you as an educator, both as a teacher and a future administrator. This week you have the week 2 discussion forum. Again, I'd like to make sure by Monday, so today's Thursday, by Monday you post your initial response so that your colleagues can post their replies in a timely fashion by Wednesday night. You also have the WCG inventory due. That is the tutorial. Basically, you're uploading a screenshot. And when I looked last night, 10 of you had already done it. Just upload a screenshot for me showing you can get into the WCG matrix for the William Cecil Golden assignments. Again, WCG number 1 is the only assignment right now going only in the portal. I'm going to talk more about some other assignments in a moment. So that's it for week number 2, and everything is due by July 3rd, which is going to be next Wednesday. Upcoming assignments to be thinking about. You've got the student learning results. That's the actual little inventory you do on WCG number 2 for our course EDU6200. That one is due next week on July 10th. That one gets posted in chalk and wire. If you do this properly, you have 2 ways you can go about that. Number 1, you can go ahead and post it directly in chalk and wire. Number 2, you can go through the portal, and when you click on the link for WCG number 2, it will take you directly to chalk and wire and let you upload it there. No difference, whatever's easier for you guys. So that's week 3. The other big thing in week 3, besides your discussion forum, is there's going to be a data chat on July 7th or July 9th. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you guys a data set. I'm not sending it this week because you got other things to think about first. I'll probably send it midweek. I'll send you a data set, actually a prompt from a sample Feely prompt for that written communication section. You're going to look over it. You're going to analyze the data. You're going to look at what the prompt wants you to do. And on July 7th or July 9th at 7 p.m., you'll join discussion on Zoom. Again, I'll send you guys an invite with a link about 5 minutes beforehand. So be looking for that 6:55 p.m. And we'll do a Zoom chat. Kind of like this, only you guys will be on with me, and it's not a one-way street from me to you. I will ask you to discuss what you found out about the data. There are 2 parts of this assignment, ladies and gentlemen. Number 1, I am looking for each of you to respond. I don't want any quietness. I need you to respond. Those of you who are new to me, I may not know your names yet, but I'll learn them, and hopefully when you log on, it has your name, and I can see what that is, and I'll learn really quickly. That's July 7th or July 9th. Pick the one that works best for you. I'll remind you during the actual data chat that afterwards you have to respond a 1-paragraph, 2-paragraph summary. What'd you learn from this data chat and how can you use it in your future as an administrator, teacher, or both? You submit that in the portal. You got to the end of the course to do it, but honestly, do it that night. You come on the 7th, do it that night. You come on the 9th, do it that night. Do not wait. It is that much easier for you. And you'll find many of the chats I did are on Sunday night. 1 week's always a Sunday night option. I try to do that for you guys. Other upcoming things that are really important are the midterm exam during week 4, which is 7/11 to 7/17. Some of you asked that question. It will open at like 12:05 on 7/11. If you're up, you want to take it, then be my guest. But there is a time limit, and I'll give you some more details about that as we get closer. Notice what the midterm covers. It's only Data-Wise chapters 1 to 4 and Leverage Leadership chapter 1. A little bit later on in the course is the John Hattie research paper. And I want to spend a moment on that with you guys because there's 2 things I want to make you aware of. First of all, this paper has a page limit. You have to write a certain number of pages. If you don't, I have to take points off. There's like no ifs, ands, or buts about that. If it is 4 3/4 pages, that's not 5. It's got to be 5 pages. So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to pull up the rubric, and if you give me a second, here it is, John Hattie research paper. So first of all, the first part of the rubric says 7 or more examples of research-based practices from John Hattie's work. You have to find 7 examples and talk about them. Very easy. 2, discuss how this work could be used in a role of decision-making as a school leader. There's a caveat here. Each one of those 7 things, you have to talk about how you'd use it as a school leader. Now, that could be a school leader as an administrator, or for some of you, if you're like a department head or team leader, it could also be a leadership role you're doing there. So there are a lot of different areas there you can explore. And last but not least, APA styling, and it must be at least 5 pages. The text itself, Times New Roman, 12-point font, double spaced, 5 pages. You do that, you'll be fine. And by the way, I've never seen anybody truly cover the 7 items in less than 5 pages. Now, if you're writing more than like 8 or 9 pages, you're getting a little too wordy for me. I don't need that much detail. It's not a dissertation. It's not a pre-dissertation. You may want to do that someday. I might be your chair or your committee member. That's not this course. That's WCG number 3. That's the first thing I want you to be aware of about it. The second thing I want you to be aware of is that WCG 3, the John Hattie paper, is not going in chalk and wire. Not in chalk and wire. That's the other assignment not going in chalk and wire. Number 1 is not going in, and number 3 is not going in. 2, 4, and 5 still will. And this is a change I just found out about like 2 nights ago. Dr. Hassan says, call me. There's some changes. And she told me about it. So if you look at the rubric that's in chalk and wire for assignment number 3, it looks very different. The course is changing next time I teach it. And that happens after July 1. But since our course started before July 1, we keep the old assignment, the John Hattie research paper. You'll find it very useful. If you've not done John Hattie's work before, it is extremely useful stuff on effect sizes. I teach that to teachers now, and we can also talk about it if we have time in one of the online chats if you guys want to do that. Assignments 4 and 5 are later on. Remember, they're reversed. You're doing assignment 5 first, assignment 4 second. Make sure you look ahead at those. You have to talk with an administrator about it. You need his or her help to do those assignments. And again, it's an online piece you fill out, but you've got to have that work together with it. And I'll talk more about that in the next video. So that's a couple things there to keep you busy and thinking about where you're going. But realize that John Hattie paper comes up real quick after the midterm, so you want to work on it now. I'm going to adjust the assignment in chalk and wire, so it does. In the portal, so it doesn't go to chalk and wire. It'll be a posting. You post a paper just like you did for assignment number 1. If you put it in chalk and wire, no big deal. I'm going to delete it. But I'll remind you guys that when it comes due. So that's it from the syllabus itself. As you start looking ahead at things, I want you to be aware of that. Also, don't forget to be looking at those rubrics. I've put them up there for you. They're in the portal to make it easy on you guys. By the way, again, the data chat times are 7 p.m. while I'm closing that window. And let me get into my window for the DataWise chapters. I want to talk about that a little bit with you before I go tonight. I love the way this book sets things up, especially chapter 1. It talks about establishing structure, setting tone, and taking stock. And for my first video with you guys, in my first email, I said data can be good and data can be overused. And in your discussion posts, as I read them, I saw a lot of people picking up on that concept of how you use data as an instructional tool and not as a punitive piece, either for students, teachers, schools, or both. Unfortunately, we live in that system. But we as administrators have to learn how to use data to drive instruction in areas we got to focus on. And I had an experience of that this spring teaching 5th grade science and math and watching math scores come in. But they talk about various things to establish structures with your teachers, building strong teams, building collaborative work, relationships. You have to build those with your teachers to be able to make this work go. Setting expectations and norms for effective meetings. They talk about having norms for collaborative work. How many of you work in PLCs? If you don't have collaborative norms, your PLC is nothing more than the gripe session. Some of you are nodding right now. I know you are. Then you're going to laugh at me because I'm talking right to the camera, telling you you're laughing right now or nodding right now. It's okay. I understand that. I've observed many PLCs in the last 5 years, and I see that piece. The last thing you got to do is you got to get people to really buy into this idea of using data as an inventory to drive instruction. And they give you a lot of information in Chapter 1. Chapter 2 takes you, oh, and by the way, I forgot, the ACE piece at the end of every chapter, talking about the ACE habits, the action, collaboration, and evidence, are just great pieces to give you some more examples of what you can use. In Chapter 2, the authors go into principles for interpreting assessment results and various things to do. They talk about measurement error, they talk about reliability, they talk about score inflation. All these terms you learn about in statistics and measurement classes. You probably learned about them when you were doing your undergraduate work. Well, in this class, you get to hear about them again, and we'll talk about that a little bit in our online data chats when we talk about the data sets in the coming weeks. Talking about assessment issues, sampling error, measurement error, keeping test scores and perception. By the way, that was part of your discussion forum this past week, and you guys answered that really, really well. I also love some of the answers I saw about the different types of tests, the norm reference, criterion, and standards reference tests. It was great seeing you all side, but also understanding others' perspectives about what might work well for you. Me personally, I've always liked criterion reference tests. Standards reference tests are an offshoot of that, basically, because it's based off standards as opposed to a criteria. And that's an important piece. One of the other sections of the chapter later on they talk about is measuring improvement. And that is a key factor in Florida. If you do not know how they measure growth in Florida, you need to know this. I'm going to tell you now in the video. I'm going to tell you again on the data chat sets on July 7th or 9th, or both. If you come to both, that's up to you. You don't have to come to both. First of all, they define growth in Florida. You probably know this, and you'll know it ahead of time when you come to the data chat as showing learning gains. What's a learning gain? Well, basically, in all of your FSA tested years, which in most grades is 3rd through 10th grade, you have to do one of a couple things. Number one, you have to go up a level. So if you're 1, you go to a 2 to a 3, a 3 to a 4, a 4 to a 5. That is a learning gain. 2, in levels 1 and 2, because they're very, very big, they have buckets. You heard that term before? Buckets. That's right. There's 3 buckets in level 1, and there's 2 buckets in level 2. And a student who moves from bucket 1 in level 1 in 3rd grade to bucket 2 in level 1 in 4th grade, that's a learning gain. Got it? Simple. The last one. If you're a 3 or a 4 and you maintain 3 or 4 and your score goes up by at least 1 point, that's a learning gain. So if my score last year was a 345 and I was a level 3, and this year I'm a 346 and I'm still level 3, that's a learning gain. Be careful though, the level cutoffs change from grade level to grade level. What was a cutoff for a level 3 in 3rd grade is not the same cutoff in 4th grade. If you're a level 5, all you got to do is stay at level 5, because really level 5 is like this big. They can stay in level 5. They've done a learning gain. That's all that matters there. So that's an important piece to understand. The rest of the chapter talks about looking at gaming the system, a really, really important concept, gaming the system, of thinking about how things work and conversations you have. And I'm going to tell you that as an educator, as a district administrator working with schools, I have done both things. I have looked at how we can have data drive instruction. Very important. That's the basis of this course. But I've also looked at a second thing. I've looked at how to help schools game the system and get points they need to move their grade up. So one of the conversations I normally have with my schools that are C's and B's, and I don't have any D schools in my area right now. They've been moved in Hillsborough to a special group called Achievement Schools. But I have mostly C and D schools and a few A schools. And I sit with my C schools and I say, okay, how many points do we need to get to a B? Where can we get those points, and what's the easiest thing to work on? Don't neglect any children, but if we focus on these kids, then we might get to that grade we need to get to and increase our school grade, and then we can focus on other elements. That's one of those big things that goes into gaming the system. So that's chapters 1 and 2 in a nutshell, but again, I think you guys had a really good discussion on that, and I enjoyed reading your posts. One of the things I'll encourage you to do, because our class is quite small this semester, I'm used to having at least 20, as you respond each week to your colleagues, respond to different people. Take a look at someone else's post this week, and don't respond to the same people every week. And I know you go-getters like me are in there, already done the discussion post for week 2, and you want to go respond. As soon as somebody responds, you respond. but it's the same like 5 people every week. So I would tell you 1 week, wait a little bit and see when others respond and respond to them and see if you get a different response out of that piece. And see if you get a different perspective on things. It's neat to look at that and have those discussions. And it's amazing when I go from school to school, and I work with 31 schools. I go from school to school, I see totally different things when I go from one school to another that might be in a similar demographic, similar grade. So really good stuff in these first couple chapters. Well, hey, I'm over 15 minutes. I'm going to stop talking and wish you all a great, great weekend. This summer, at least to the end of July, have Fridays off. So tomorrow's a day off for me, and I'll be painting my house before the rain. You guys have a great night, great weekend. I'll be back with some updates mid next week.